good afternoon. Welcome to the second episode of Athlete of the Week with your host, Thomas Webb. Today's today's Athlete of the Week, we have a man who's no stranger to the world of athletics. I've known him for 7 or 8 years, and he's always kept himself in good nick in the gym and running. But right from the age of 13, in the under 13s, he won his local area's cup and league football tournaments. But even recently in university, representing the twos medics as captain, he got victories in the cup and league competition as well, including NAMS tournament, which is a nationwide medics competition. As well as that, he has competed in 6 half marathons, and recently he's, as of yesterday, just competed in his second marathon in the space of 4 months. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Rhys Hughes. How are you feeling?
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's an honour to be here, and it's even more of an honour to be called an athlete. I think that's the first time anyone's ever called me an athlete of the week. So,
well, yeah. it would disrespect the title of the show if I didn't. So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
And really, it's an honour to be following in the steps of last week's guest, Zack Morris. I mean, an equally inspiring man. So,
yes, are you a fan of his work?
Absolutely. I'm gonna put a little spoiler out there for the guests tonight, the people watching at home. My methods that I'm about to talk about in the next sort of half an hour or so may differ somewhat, maybe a bit more classical. So if we've got any viewers out there, who are fixed on Zack's methods and have plunged right into his methods, I don't want to disturb their hard work and devotion. So take what I'm going to say with a pinch of salt.
Well, that's the whole point. That's the whole point, to get a variety of different methods. So we're very interested to see your methods. But shall we start first of all with your recent marathon? I even don't know what sort of time you got, so I'm very excited to hear about that. How did it go yesterday?
So yesterday was a London Marathon. Amazing atmosphere. We'll get onto the peaks and the troughs of the marathon later. There were definitely some troughs on the course. But today I stood in the queue at the New Balance shop to get the medal engraved. So it's got the time on, so I can either reveal it or I can just.
The Wi-Fi seems to have stopped for a bit here. I think Rhys, that last bit just didn't go through there.
Okay.
So it was like so you went to the New Balance shop and got your medal engraved.
Yeah, that's it, with my name and my time. I'll give some background to the viewers. So I did the Worcester Marathon at the end of May, first marathon I've ever done, and I got 3 hours 41.
Okay.
So my target going into this was sub 3:30, which I thought was going to be great.
Yeah.
I thought 50-50 on the day. We'll see how it goes. If everything goes well, everything plays into it, I've got a 50-50 chance. So I'll see if this works if I hold it up.
Oh, here we go. So for any Spotify viewers out there, wow, his time is 3 hours 29 minutes and 43 seconds.
Lovely.
We're just under that mark. Wow, by 17 seconds. Oh my goodness, that was tight.
In a way, I couldn't have wanted it to go another way. Yeah. It makes me laugh whenever I look at the medal now and I look at the time. I just laugh out loud to myself. I'm just like,
fair play, mate.
You couldn't cut it much tighter than that, but perfect.
Yeah, wow, that's class time, especially for your second marathon. Did it all go according to plan? Did you have a pace in mind and you just set off and just stayed at that pace, or talk me through the race?
Yeah, so the race starts just above Greenwich Park. So Greenwich Park's very hilly, but it's at the top of the hill. So I knew that I work in kilometers, so I knew that I needed to get about a 4:57 kilometer for 42k to get the pace. So a fair pace for 42k. I was like, okay. I've been watching videos all week, and the number one thing that everyone says is, "Don't set off too quick. Don't set off too quick." So this was drilled into my head.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, the adrenaline of the day, everyone around you, like it's just so exciting. So I started. I felt pretty good. I obviously have done like minimal running this week, just like completely tapering off, eating loads of carbs. So I felt like really well rested. And I didn't feel like I was pushing myself. I was trying to like hold myself back, but I'd look at my watch, and I think my first couple of K were about 3:35 to 3:38. No, sorry, 4:35 to 4:38.
I was gonna say, okay.
So about 20 seconds under, which I thought, I felt cruising. I didn't feel like I was pushing for that time. I was actually trying to hold back.
Yeah.
So I thought I felt good. I was like, let's just live with this. Let's not go any faster. Like if I go faster, I roll myself in, but let's just hold it.
Yeah.
So I felt absolutely buzzing up to about 10K, absolutely perfect, lovely. Came around like by the Cutty Sark, and the atmosphere there is like amazing. So the huge ship and like loads of people around there. And really up to halfway, I'd say I felt great. So my girlfriend Catherine and my parents were at halfway, just before Tower Bridge, and so were the guide dog stand. So I think I passed halfway at about 1 hour 40, which in itself isn't even like a terrible half marathon time. So at this point, I was trying to hit around 1:45 for a half. I was like, I'd be roughly on track. So I was a few minutes under, so I was quite surprised. And I still felt brilliant at halfway. Like the energy was great. I wasn't feeling fatigued. And then the second half, I was holding on, I'll be honest. And I think mentally the second half of the course, you head like out of London again to Canary Wharf. It just becomes like a little bit less interesting what you're looking at. It just became a slog. At one point, you've got about 2 miles where the route will loop back on itself. So you're running the one side and you're seeing all of these like elites just absolutely tearing it down the other side. That was a hard point, because you think like, I don't know, at this point we're about 15 miles in, you've got 11 miles to go. And you're seeing all these like guys just like tearing past, like there's, like they've gone for a little jog for the morning. So the bit through Canary Wharf for me was hard. I was holding on. But yeah,
so
we got
you sort of hit the wall at halfway, or was it a bit after? Or?
I'd say it was probably, so I think we entered Canary Wharf around 18 miles. I think then is where, I'm not sure it was so much like a physical wall at this point. I think it was just like a complete mental block. You end up running around Canary Wharf, so all the skyscrapers for like 3 miles, and there's so many turns, and I just almost felt a bit like disorientated. Like you just think, when am I going to get out of Canary Wharf? And then when you come out of Canary Wharf, you're at about mile 21, but it feels like it's obviously 5 miles to go, but it feels so far away from like central London. So like psychologically, you're just like, I'm so far from Buckingham Palace. Like that is so far away. And then later on, with 5K to go, I had some physical bits, which we can come on to.
Physical bits?
Yeah. Physical bits and bobs.
Well, let's get it out of the way now. So you had to go to the toilet, I assume?
No, it's not that. So no, luckily no toilet problems.
That was a different half marathon I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We'll come on to that later. Yeah.
Oh my God. That was the one you did backwards, wasn't
it? This interview isn't about me. It's about you, mate.
That's for a later time. So yeah, like I'm quite lucky. I don't usually get like muscle pulls or like little niggles or anything. I'm fairly lucky like that.
Yeah.
But 5K to go, bloody hell. So first it was like my right thigh, just like the inside part of it. Every time I was planting my foot, just like pulling, like the sharp pain just going up like my leg every time. And then with about 4K to go, just both of my hammies, like I never get any strains or anything in them, but both of them were just like pulling. So the last 4K or so, it felt like someone was just like pulling me along like I'm some little puppet. Oh, it was painful. And at that point, it was horrible. I was like between this rock and a hard place. So I was like looking at my watch,
Yeah.
And I just saw the average time creeping up towards 4:57, like it was like 4:55, 4:56, and I'm just like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And then I was like getting like obviously annoyed that it looked like I was going to miss out on my time. But then I was in so much pain, I was just like, I physically can't go any quicker. Like I've just got to hold and see what happens. And luckily we just about made it. But
Yeah.
They got to a point with about 4K to go. I'd pushed myself so much. I started to question whether I was even going to finish it, which is ridiculous. But I just felt completely sapped. I've never felt that exhausted. Like, it sounds really weird, but I can't. Obviously, in the last bit of the marathon, you go past like the London Eye, Big Ben. Like, there's some big landmarks to look at. I can't remember going past any of those. I can't even remember like hearing the crowd.
Yeah.
And they were so loud, but I was just in this like little pain, sort of, just, you know what I mean? I was just focusing so much on trying to finish. I just blanked everything else out. But yeah, it's definitely the hardest I've ever pushed myself physically.
Really, you reckon? Wow.
100%, yeah. And I said yesterday, and I still think this is the case. I think it's the hardest 3 hours of my life ever. Really? Yeah, it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
But
So, yeah,
incredible.
You must have felt absolutely amazing when you crossed the line, or were you just still in so much pain, or what happened? Did you know you'd broken the 3:30 barrier at that point, or?
Yeah. So what happened? So I'll talk you through like the last K or so. So we're coming up like St James's Park is on your right, and this is where like the crowds have been amazing the whole way, but now they're just crazy. Like there's so many people there screaming, like it's so loud. And usually it's not that far, St James's Park to Buckingham Palace. They're very close. Like I've walked there so many times, like it's not very far. I just looked into the distance and I knew that we were going to go round the corner, round past Buckingham Palace, and then onto the mall, the bit where you see everyone finish. And I just couldn't see anyone turning. And I looked at my watch and I was like, I think I'm on time, but like my brain can't do maths at this point. I'm just going to carry on. That sort of stretch just went on and on and on, and I was just like, when are we going to turn? At this point, I looked back at my watch and I had 2 minutes to go, and I was like, we haven't even turned past Buckingham Palace, we're not in the mall. Like, I don't think I'm going to do this. And then pretty soon afterwards, we get to the turning, we go round past the turning, and then Catherine and my parents are there, and actually Catherine's mum and nan had come as well. And I was expecting them to be like further back. They said they were going to be like like K38 or something. So I thought, I've just missed them, whatever. So I can hear them like screaming as I'm going around this corner. I have a final glance at my watch and I've got about 45 seconds. At this point, I'm not even on the straight. I'm still going around the corner.
Yeah.
And you see this banner. So you run to this banner. It says 385 yards to go. Like the last bit. You've done 42K. It's the last bit. And I knew I looked at the distance. It looked so far. It wasn't, but it looked so far away. And I just thought, at this pace, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Like I can't. I could barely move my legs. Like my legs were like spasming at this point. I was just in so much pain. And then about maybe a third of the way down, I started looking at the watch. It's counting down probably like 29 seconds or something. But I knew I was going to miss the time, and I was just like, I just suddenly had a switch of just like, I don't care how much pain I'm in.
Yeah.
If I miss this by like 5 seconds, which is what it's going to be, I'm going to be in way more pain going forwards for like the coming days, weeks. Yeah. So I did what I thought was a sprint. If I look back at it, it was probably like I was running at the start of the marathon, but it felt like a sprint. Crossed the line, did my watch, and it said I'd beaten it by about 15 seconds. But I was still nervous because bib times can sometimes be slightly different. So I thought, is it going to match? But I then got a text through on my phone, and I'd done it. So
Incredible.
Yeah.
And what was that moment like when you knew you'd set your goal and you'd beaten the time under 3:30? Like elation, relief, or just like you'd broken a limit in your mind and what next is possible? Or
it was more like what I expected, and what you see on the TV is like pure elation and people just like ecstatic and yes, I've done it. I think I was so exhausted I didn't know what to do. Like I took the information, I saw on my phone, took the information, I've beaten it. But I think I just didn't have any energy to react to it. It took me like, it was like until an hour later, once I got all the sugar down and started to feel human again, I was obviously absolutely elated and buzzing. But weirdly, the initial feeling, I was just like, it was just relief that I could stop running. I was just exhausted. I so I think yesterday on our group, I did a voice video. I don't even remember doing that really. I don't remember what I said.
Yeah, I haven't heard it yet because I didn't want any spoilers, but I
Yeah.
will no doubt go back and listen to it.
And then I rang Catherine, and then later on she was like, "You were making no sense at all."
Yeah.
Like, I honestly think at this point I was delirious. Like, I just had to sit down for like 20 minutes and just like stop.
Yeah.
And then it will start to flood in, and yeah, emotions. It was great.
Well, amazing, mate. That's a fantastic achievement, especially to set that pretty hard goal, and especially only your second marathon as well, and get under it.
Yeah.
You're so close as
Yeah.
well. Like, fair play.
It was dramatic. It was almost movie-like. If I could plan it, like,
I'm
I
sure.
would make it like that, and it was amazing.
Certainly from your perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
And today you must be absolutely, exhausted and muscles aching, and is that right? Or
the worst bit is steps. So it's okay on a flat, like I can feel all the muscles pulling, but I don't know what it is. Anytime you try and go up or down steps, it's just like shooting pains. It's my thighs are the worst. Just like shooting pains in the thighs. Like, I've got these to show you. I've been dosing out a bit of Nurofen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A bit of Nurofen, a bit of paracetamol. But it's all worth it. It's all worth it.
So talk to me about your preparation and training for this marathon. I know you did a marathon 4 months before. So did it start from that day, or did it start from before that marathon? Or
it was, so I'll go all the way back. So earlier in the year I decided to get more into running, and to probably using running as an outlet for like other stresses at the time.
Yeah, of course.
And running's always been great for that, but I found at times which are really stressful, I've picked up running, and it's like it's such a good thing. I've always wanted to do a marathon, so I applied for the London through the ballot and didn't get it. I then applied through the charity spaces through Guide Dogs, and initially didn't get it for the London. So I just decided, you know what, I think this is a really good point of my life to sign up for a marathon. I've always wanted to do one. Let's do one.
Yeah.
So I signed up to the Worcester Marathon, which is like quite close to where I live, family home. I think with about 6 weeks to go until the marathon. So it was a bit of a spontaneous decision, but I just decided because then it was the summer break, and I was like, no, I want to do one soon. Like, I need something to focus on. So I signed up to that, and then a week before I was going to run the Worcester, I got an email through from Guide Dogs saying, "You're on our waiting list. Someone's dropped out. You've got a place."
So now you've got two to do in 4 months.
Yeah. So I just trained for the first one, so for the Worcester. And to be honest with you, I only trained probably 5 weeks for that one. I didn't train very long, not long enough really. And then I had this decision, which probably took me about 10 minutes to decide whether I was going to not do the Worcester and just do the London, turn down the London, or do both. And quite quickly, obviously, I wasn't going to turn down London, because people try and get into London for like years. Like, some people have tried for 10 years and don't get it.
Yeah.
And then I'd already trained for the other one. So I was like, look, it'll be a really good experience. It'd be good to get one under my belt before doing London. So I did that one. So that was the 22nd of May. And then I think I had about 2 full weeks off, just like completely resting, and then started the training program for London, which would have been the start of June. So like going into the peak of what was like the hottest summer we've had this year, which was also a different challenge. So I think all in all, my training schedule was about 12 to 13 weeks, start to finish. But just for the viewers at home, that was like on a background of having done, like, when I'm not training for something, I'll do like 25 to 30k a week. Yeah. Just casually, just to try and
as your baseline. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was sort of my baseline I came off. Yeah.
Yeah. And for this, then, did you follow a specific marathon program, or did you just simply increase your mileage gradually, go for longer runs, or what was the philosophy behind that?
So for the Worcester, just to compare, it was quite sort of sporadic. I sort of just thought I'll just try and increase the distance and get up to a decent distance. I think I went to about 35k on that. With this one, I mean, I think for my first marathon, the Worcester one was good, but I thought there's definitely areas I could have improved. So I downloaded there's like a London Marathon training plan, which they make, and they split it into like beginners, improvers, and then in like advanced. So having done one, I thought let's do the improvers, which requires you to run 4 days a week. So the beginners is 3 days, the advanced is 5, and this is 4. So I thought I can probably fit that around work. So the way it generally went, obviously it would build up distance over time, but it would usually have one like interval session a week, one like a race pace run a week, one easy run a week, so just like really gentle, just getting the mileage in basically, and then one long run a week, which would usually be like the weekend. So the 3 sessions which weren't the long run were pretty fixed really. They vary them up, but they were basically the same distance all the way through. And then it would be the long run, which sort of increased over time, and then obviously towards the end tapered.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I did it really. And I think what I take from the training plan that I followed, I think the biggest difference for me this time, and something that I will actually do going forward, even if I'm not training for something, is interval training. I've never done that before, just because obviously the first times you do it, it feels really uncomfortable. It's not nice. Like
it feels horrible. Yeah.
pushing yourself like that, it feels awful. But once you do it a bit, it actually feels really good to push your body like that.
Yeah.
Because then when you're trying to do slower paces but maintain them for a longer time, it feels much easier because you've already pushed yourself much harder than that, but just for shorter times. So,
and I suppose when you get to that point in the actual race, inevitably when your body wants to stop and you're panting for breath, you've sort of already experienced that in your interval sessions maybe.
Exactly. So it doesn't feel as uncomfortable as maybe it would have if you didn't do interval training.
Yeah.
So I think really the main difference between the two, I think I upped the number of sessions a week from 3 to 4, and it was really the interval sessions. That's the only difference I can think of. But I do think that made a lot of help. Like when I would then do the other sessions, they started to feel surprisingly easier. And like the easy session in a week would start to feel like a treat. I'd be doing like just over 5-minute Ks, like maybe 5:10, 5:20, but that would start to feel like just really comfortable. And I'd go out and just like really enjoy the run. It would feel like completely not taxing, just like really enjoyable. So yeah, that's how I did it. I think so this time it's interesting. The training plan with the marathon was talking much more about time rather than distance. So the furthest I did was 3 hours 30, but then obviously that was my target. So in my training, I actually did do a marathon, but actually I ran for 3 hours 30, but I had to stop a few times, I'll be honest. On that longest run, I was just exhausted. So although technically on my Strava, it says that I've already done a 3:30 marathon. Strava's good at knowing that you've actually stopped for like 10 minutes. So actually that marathon that I did was slower than the Worcester one, because on that day I was struggling. So I knew I was there or thereabouts, but I knew come race day I still had work to do. It wasn't just in the bag.
It wasn't guaranteed.
No.
Well,
yeah. And obviously with like 2 or 3 weeks to go, I started to taper off quite dramatically and reduce mileage.
And we'll talk then a bit about your past running achievements. So before these marathons, you did 6 half marathons, is that right?
Yeah, I've done 6 in total. Yeah.
And what was your best time for half marathon?
I think my best for half marathon is 1:34. But to be honest, like we often do as a house, wouldn't we, half marathons at uni, because we were living in Cardiff. We could just walk to the start line. We'd often just sign up for it, and some years not really train for it, just do it as like let's just do it.
Bit of a laugh,
Laugh, exactly. So I think the first ever half marathon I did, I think my time was 1:51. And then I think my best time, I think it's either 1:34 or 1:36. But to be honest, even when I was doing the halves, I've never trained like I have for this. I've never put really put my mind to like, I
Mhm.
really want to achieve a big goal here.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, I guess we were doing other sports at uni and just generally keeping fit, but I've
Yeah.
never done
Never
like a
specifically trained for running. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
And you know, you may speak to other athletes like Mr. Morris, and he'd be flabbergasted at all the sort of
Training talk. Yeah.
technicality
It's not in his
that you put
vocabulary, I
in.
don't
But
think. It's
yeah,
not in his
exactly.
that man's vocabulary, training
But
preparation.
I
But
just, you know, I want to give the viewers a bit of, you know,
yeah,
two sides of the coin so they can decide which one they fit into.
exactly. Um, and to be fair, Mr. Morris hasn't run a sub 3:30 marathon. Um, I'm poking the bear here, but no, he's shown us. He's definitely shown us he can whatever he wants to do, he can complete it. But
Yeah.
in terms of speed, that would be an interesting challenge to see if his particular techniques would work for that as well. But anyway, I was going to ask. It's worth mentioning that you've always been running for different charities, and the most recent one was for, you mentioned briefly, blind dogs, or not blind dogs, but
Yeah.
guide
That,
dogs for blind people.
yes.
Yeah.
If the
So
dogs were blind, that would create all sorts of problems, I think.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, not necessarily, but you know, probably.
But very good, and I'm sure we can put your Just Giving link
Ah, yeah,
on
that'd be great.
the bio of this as well. So, but and you mentioned about running being an outlet for you. Um, so has that always been the case? You know, whenever you are stressed or just to clear your head, running's always been playing that role as the first thing you would do to help you with that, or
Yeah, I think so. I mean, probably from the age of like my like mid to late teens, I've been like running regularly.
Mhm.
But when I first started, like I wasn't interested really in like doing any races. I just would run because I just enjoyed it and give me headspace. And back then, I was living at home, so there's really nice places to run at home. Like it's nice countryside. And then definitely like since I've come to uni, like obviously there's highs and lows of uni, different things happen. And I've definitely noticed a pattern of like when the going gets tough with something, when something crops up in life, which is tricky. I find it's an incredible outlet. Um, Not just like focusing on a longer term target, which in a time of like something else being stressful is good to like try and get you to that future point and be like, there will be a better time, you know, there's going to be better things coming up. It's also like in the moment, like day to day dealing with the stress, I just find there's nothing else which can in that space of time make me feel, turn around my mood from feeling, you know, if I'm having a really stressful day, feeling annoyed with something, stressed,
Mhm.
down. There's nothing which can turn that switch into me feeling good as quickly as running can, and as reliably.
Yeah.
There's obviously other outlets like speaking to mates and stuff is always really great, but sometimes you know everyone's busy,
Yeah.
and like I've touched wood, I've never really gone on a run and come back and felt worse than when I went. Like
Yeah.
even if it's not a good run, you always feel a bit better for having done it.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
so
running specifically rather than exercise for you. Right. The gym doesn't do the
for
same.
me, yeah. So since I've moved to London, so obviously we used to gym all together. Sort of initially for a cost reason, because obviously when I first moved, didn't have much money going on,
Mhm.
and gyms are really expensive in London. So haven't signed up to a gym in London at all. Initially was trying to keep a bit of stuff going, so like doing like some sort of home workouts because I was doing a lot of that over the pandemic. But then I guess more recently, since I've been, I guess, trying to turn my running into a bit more of like a target and achievement. I haven't been gymming. I mean, I'm sure there are benefits of doing some gym work with running,
Mhm.
but I think with like balancing job as well and trying to fit in these 4 sessions a week, I've just been like, if this is my target and I want to do that sub 3:30, just need to focus on the running because I don't think I've got time for other things.
Yeah.
Like at this moment for this target, so I just basically focus on the running. Um, and yeah, haven't really been doing other bits. I've been doing a bit of five-side football.
Yeah.
Um, I cycle to work and back every day,
Mhm.
which is not very. It's like 10k or something, but yeah, basically just focusing on the running.
Great. And so I know you always like to have a goal in mind coming up in the future, something to focus on. I'm sure even though it's only one day after the marathon, that satisfaction will quickly wear off with you and you'll want to be setting another goal or target. Do you have anything in mind, or is it too early for that?
Yeah. So actually, before I came on the podcast, I've already been just looking, just out of interest, what's out there, what's the next thing. I mean, two marathons in like 4 and a bit months from no marathons previously has been hard, and I'm gonna take a bit of time just to like probably get back into my football a bit more, maybe try and be slightly more rounded in what I'm doing. So a bit of running, may try and introduce some more like strength work again.
Yeah.
So for the immediate future, there's nothing, but there are also thoughts in the back of my head of what is the next thing. Because you're right, there's always the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. I've had an inquiry from last week's guest, Mr. Morris, about the prospect of an ultra for next year. So that may be in the pipeline. I don't know if we maybe do more than. So I think his last one was 50k. So maybe we'll go for like a 70k or something.
Wow. He's turning
So
you
that
to the dark side.
potentially.
Yeah.
He said to me, "Would you want to do an ultra marathon?" And my response was, only if I was going to do it with someone else. Like, I'm not sure. Yesterday was really tough, and I'm not sure if I was purely focusing on time and caring about time that I'd be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think if I created it into more of like the challenge is the distance, and I was doing it with someone else, I think it would be much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So that's one avenue potentially. The other avenue that I'm sort of interested in as well, I'd quite like to do a marathon abroad.
Yeah.
I think Paris would be amazing. I think Berlin would be cool. Obviously, Berlin's another major. So that's another thought in my head. And then the other thought, which I'm not sure is going to take off straight away, but at some point I would love to do some triathlons and maybe even do like a half Ironman as a start. But to be honest, I think that's more of like a 5-year plan potentially.
Yeah.
Because I don't swim. I haven't swum much in my life. Like, I'm not a good swimmer. I've got a bike, so I think the next plan is to get out on my bike a bit more, because I just use it for work at the moment. So enjoying doing that, go on some long cycles, see if I like it. Rest up for a bit, and then I think the immediate plan will either be potentially a ultra with Zack, or maybe another marathon next year, maybe somewhere abroad. Yeah.
Amazing, very exciting, and definitely take some time to just reflect on your current achievement and rest up. And,
of course.
You mentioned getting back into football a bit. Do you just mean like 5-a-side, or would you ever go back to 11-a-side again?
So yeah, the first instance is 5-a-side. So I'm part of a 5-a-side team at the moment, which I'm loving. Like, I'm loving getting back into football. I think I would like to play 11-a-side again, but it's like, to be in an 11-a-side team is quite a commitment. Like, you've got to turn up training every week. If you're not available for 2 or 3 weeks on trot, like, they're going to start looking at other players. So potentially, I think it depends on my next plans in terms of, am I going to locum for longer and these sort of things. But I think we'll see how 5-a-side goes, and I'd love to even just like be able to fill in a gap on a Sunday league team. Not be relied on every week, but they're like, oh, we need someone this week. Can you come along?
Locum 11-a-side player.
A local footballer, yeah, that would be nice.
I'm conscious of time here, but I have to ask you. You probably did get back in time on Sunday to see I know you're a Manchester United fan, and I'm a Manchester City fan, of course. So, did you, by any chance, get to watch the match? I'm sure you would have done.
No, I've been so inundated since with all these kind messages of thanks. I've not even checked the score yet. So yeah, I'll have to check that at some point. But I'm sure we did well. We're looking good these days under Ten Hag. So I've got every faith.
Very good. Well, I'll definitely give that a watch, I reckon. So just quickly, Rhys, then, to the viewers, then what advice would you give to someone who maybe hasn't done a marathon before, maybe hasn't even done a half marathon? What would you say to them?
I'd say number one, check that you're doing it for the right reason. So ask yourself why you want to do a half marathon or marathon, because especially a marathon, like the last 4 months have been like hard training, and at times I've had to make decisions of not doing things to get to it. So number one, I'd say, why do you want to do it, and do you want to do it enough to focus on it? And number two, I'd say, if it's your first one, just enjoy it. Like, there's so much talk online. You look at all these times, and it's easy not to get swept up with, I want to do this time, and I did it this time, I have a target, I want to do it in this time. But I say, go easy on yourself, just run and enjoy it, because the likelihood is, if you go and do your first one, you enjoy it, you're probably going to want to do another one, because the buzz is great. And later down the line, once you've got a few hundred about, you can start worrying if you want about times. But the only person you're racing against is yourself. So if you've gone out and you've had a great day and you've enjoyed it, like, who cares how many seconds it took for you to run around that course? Like, at the end of the day, yesterday, there's all those elites who've run a marathon, but like, there's all these amateurs who have also run a marathon. All right, they've done it quicker, which is incredible. But like, at the end of the day, you have, the amazing thing about these events is you have such a broad spectrum of people who have all completed the same accomplishment that day. So I say, work your way into it slowly. Just try and enjoy it. Don't focus necessarily on the goal. Just focus on trying to enjoy the process and enjoy the training. Ease your way into it. Don't force yourself. That's what I'd say.
Ease your way into it, folks. Enjoy it. Don't worry about results. Results will come. That's Rhys's message. Very interesting that how much it differs to Zack's. So, but thank you very much, Rhys, for coming on the show. You've been great.
It's been a real pleasure, and I'm excited to follow the podcast and see who's up next.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Thank you very much for listening so far. Join us next week on Athlete of the Week. Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.